Countries are increasingly being associated with huge budgets and resultant huge deficits. Some countries have had to embark on aggressive tax drives to show up their revenues, but have often fallen short. Most have resorted to alarming borrowing to plug the holes. Deji Badmus has been speaking to an investment banker on the issue.
A few countries like Nigeria and those with developed financial markets borrow from the bond market. They issue bond to finance their deficit. Then part of the funding is also coming from offshore lending partners. In terms of Nigeria, for instance, is accessing Eurobond. Some other countries are getting development financial support from any of their development finance partners, maybe multilateral agencies. So you have about 4 sources from which African countries are financing their deficit: multilateral financial institutions, bilateral partners, then local financial institutions in form of money market borrowing from banks, and then you have the capital market funding coming from bond issuances. And then there's also a very fifth, but one would say should not be the last option, which is financing by ways and means, printing of money. Of course, we know the implications, negative implications of printing of money to finance budget deficit. But these are some of the methods which African countries are using to finance their budget deficit. I
mean, this is a continent now that people say is so rich in natural resources and what have you. Why is Africa unable to tap its natural resources now, you know, and generate enough to fund its budget rather than resort to borrowing?
Well, the basic thing is that today African countries have some of the lowest tax to GDP ratios. Apart from countries like Ghana that has about 20% tax to GDP ratio, countries like Nigeria have about 6.1% tax to GDP ratio. So you find out that in a number of African countries, Angola has about 5.7% to GDP tax to GDP ratio. Most African countries are not able to tax their citizens. It's in effect the connection between the citizen and the government is weak in a lot of instances in Africa, particularly the oil-producing countries. The African countries are dependent on natural resources. They find it difficult to have an effective tax system that will ensure that those who earn income contribute to the development of the country, their countries. Then when you talk of the natural resources, they have to be developed. It is not enough that you have natural resources on the ground. You need to bring it out and you have to develop it. You have to create economic activities around those natural resources. Beyond South Africa, that has a very vibrant mining sector. And the other countries do not have mining sectors or extractive industries that have direct and a pervasive impact on the economic activities. Take, for instance, Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the largest oil-producing countries in Africa, but Nigeria's oil and gas sector only accounts for about 15–16%. In fact, currently about 13% of the GDP. So, though it has a more pervasive impact as it relates to furnishing earnings, but in terms of contribution to the value of goods and services produced in the country, in terms of job employment creation, you find out that a lot of the extractive industries in Africa are not as effective in terms of creating jobs. So you don't have that benefit of the natural resources as it relates to government revenue.